So I'm back in my Flow studio. This is Toby at Tarisha Technologies. Um, and we are working with OPC UA subscriber aggregate and property managers so that we can take simulated points off of devices in the field, map them to a property, and store them in a database. And I've demonstrated this in Node-RED. I'm doing this in Crosser. I'm trying to learn Crosser, so bear with me. Just to go through the settings again. We're setting up OPC UA subscriber and pulling in tags to monitor. Pressure 1, temp 1, node 2 for node 2, ID 2. So those are things to keep in mind when you're setting up your settings for the OPC UA. There's some other things going on here that I haven't learned yet. Aggregate allows me to grab the source property, add a value property, and a target property. So we're taking data, we're putting in the target property stats, and we're looking for the name and the value. We should see this when we hit go. I'm already connected to my sandbox, so I'm going to start a remote session. And the only one I have debug on is my last property mapper. And there she goes. So, and if I pop this out, pressure 1, 14. Cross success. This is just saying that it made it through and that its output was successful in that module. And then we have a temp 1. Open that one. Temperature 1, 75.7. Crosser was successful. So this property mapper is what I'm looking for on the next step. So I'm going to have to look at how I converted these properties and use it over here. And this we got a little bit more industrious. And all I did with that button was bring my sandbox over to this flow instead of exercise 2.1. So if I close this for a minute and we go through, I've got an MQTT subclient. So that is set up to read from an MQTT site. And it's not my site, so I shouldn't share it. Common we haven't done anything with. Documentation is where you can get help. And then we're mapping the property to source MQTT. Now, if we do this bottom part for OPC UA, it's the same thing. Point to an OPC UA source. And then your target property is data. And I put in my additional tags to monitor pressure 1 and temp 1. Up here, where did we put in? So there's no message filters here, but this is pressure 3 and temp 3. And I'm trying to figure out in my head where we put that. And maybe it's here. Maybe it's not. Because I know I'm getting it, but it's the difference between how we're formatted in MQTT and how the OPC UA subscriber is. Alright, so same idea as what we discussed in 2.1, name, value. So source property, go to a value property. Go into a target of stats. And I don't want to click on my messages right now because if I fill it in there and it doesn't keep it, it'll error me out. So property mapper here, source OPC. So 2 different data sources, we're telling it to attach a property to the packet, and that's not the proper word for MQTT or Node-RED or this, but you get the idea. We're adding a property source OPC, source MQTT, so that we can tell which data this is coming from. Not that we shouldn't know, but it makes it easier. And then source name, source value, we're putting both of those into stats. Here we're going to split it out. Temperatures with a condition, and it's going to go stats average. Condition for pressures, stats average. And these are both going to 1, it looks like at this point. I'm not sure why, because we had it. Anyway, I won't go down that rabbit hole. So, except that I could have swore that this would have been, well, it's pressures 1, so that's why it's like that. But so it's 2 condition groups, so these match up with the connections that we have here. And stats average. Underneath the stats average property, we get less than or equal to 100, and we're looking for a number. If it's missing, it's okay. Here we want pressures that are larger than 500. This is some conditioning, I believe, for the mathematics. Because here we are doing the mathematics. I went through this in a different video. And we're just converting from the Celsius to Fahrenheit, and then from bar to PSI, which I didn't put a nice label on the other one. So we could do that here, and then you guys can learn how to do that. So you can say bar to PSI. And you can check my math, 14.5, blah, 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 times stats average divided by 1,000. And then we're putting that out to a property mapper for each. And here we got temperature stats dot name and then data dot temperature. So pay attention to that compared to what we had earlier, because I am going to have to figure out how to change this so that I match up with something else. Because when we hit the go button here, play button, you will see, alright, it's going to take it a minute, it has to connect. Already. Alright, so here we are, we're connected. You can see where my source came across at OPC. Let's pop this out so we can see it. Source is OPC, average 962, 1794, pressure 1, min max. So the and then there's the converted value. So what I want to be able to output, and this is what we're actually outputting right here. So the reason why I'm seeing all of this right now is because my setting is to keep properties. So if we want to simplify that, we don't keep properties. And that's going to take it a minute again. But we're going to see it come across where it just says like temperature and data. So it's just going to show that part of the topic packet, or the data envelope. Yeah, so you can see it right here. So temperatures, and then we got data and temperature. So all the stuff that was up here in the whole thing is stored in here at the moment. So I'm going to end up changing those, and then bringing about something that's just readable on its own for like pressure 3, and then the actual value. So, and what that would be is like we saw here. Let me clear these out. We start again. And then we've got pressure 1, 12.5. So I am going to change my other flow to just output this type of format. And then I'll do a video on that, because I don't work well with people looking over my shoulder, and I know you guys are all looking over my shoulder.